Random review time again, and let me explain how this works. When you leave comments, I'm looking for someone to grab my attention. That is what's going to decide which toy I review next. And a lot of you responded with Safeguard, who I do want to review, but someone was trying just a little bit harder to get my attention this week. If you've seen my other videos, you know exactly who it is. So without any further ado, we go with Animated Arcee, the much sought after brand new Toys R Us exclusive that finally, after 23 years of anticipation, gives us the Arcee we've always wanted. And with that, there's a lot of expectation. So, is it worth it? Did they do enough to actually make it worth waiting this long for a four-wheeled Arcee? I quite think so. Let's take a look at the vehicle mode here first. You can see very slim, very trimmed down vehicle mode. This is very, very thin, especially right here in the middle. You can see just how thin it gets. It works for her. There's a very, very nice blend of G1 and animated aesthetics here. With so much anticipation for a car Arcee, they probably felt the need to make it as G1 accurate as they could while still making it feel like an animated vehicle. I think that's why the tail fin is so prominent here. It's quite wide compared to her, as it could easily take out bystanders on the sidewalk as she drives by. I'm sure it's just an unfortunate design flaw. We won't hold it against her. Actually, between the nice magenta, which is much darker than the original concepts I think we saw of this toy, and such a huge spoiler in the back, it almost makes me think this is some lost child between G1 Hot Rod and Arcee. But that's just my personal fanfic talking, I guess. For actual detailing on the car, as you can see, it's a very dark shade of pink into the magenta category. So it would appeal to boys a little bit more rather than the Barbie series of fans. You can see lots of paint details here on the hood, and none of it really replicating the G1 appearance. There's no white coming down off the front here, but there are still a few design elements like that little grill in the front, which come right off of the G1 version of the toy, or G1 version of the model, I should say. Never had a toy. Arcee is the one that killed every toy line she was in. Don't forget that. She's got a lot of nice detailing going on here. You can see the pipes in here, which kind of back up the hot rod claim. And very thin wheels, but she rolls quite well on them. Also a nice bold Autobot symbol stamped right here on the roof of the cockpit. And I call the cockpit because this is supposed to be a rocket car of some kind, though she has no rockets on the back. And this symbol might be just a little bit too bold. We'll see why once we get to robot mode. Look here in the back real quick. This is probably the only side where it's kind of detracting. You can see the tail lights here, which are actually the sword handles, and it's very obvious that they are not tail lights. You can also see her hands and her head very clearly from the rear. There's no bumper piece at all. I think that's the one downfall of this toy is I would have liked to see some kind of bumper piece that could have slid out or folded away once you went to robot mode. This, it's just a little bit lacking, especially for a smaller deluxe. You'd think they could afford to do something to hide that. I will mention here that these are perfectly removable. It says so in the instructions, and you could make it a very G1 Arcee without that tail fin. Now, I want you to look at the line of this car in this mode without the tail fins. It is extremely sleek, very, very streamlined. It looks awesome. It's a very cool profile to have. All of these pieces flow so nicely all the way down. It is a very impressive vehicle mode considering they had a female body to work with, which generally doesn't have enough spots for kibble and bulk. So let's see how slim the female was. We'll take this thing into robot mode. On to robot mode, and this mode shines just as much as the last one. Again, the blending of aesthetics is gorgeous. This is definitely a G1 Arcee right down to the Princess Leia buns. But it's a lot of other Arcees all together, which actually makes this very impressive as far as a design aesthetic. If you've ever wanted any kind of Arcee that resembled the G1 version, this is it. This is every one of them, and we'll see why here in a bit. As you can tell, she's again a rather smallish deluxe. This time it's a little bit easier to see with Thrust, who's he's also kind of smallish himself, but you can see even he's got a lot more width and bulk going on here. While Arcee just kind of does things her own way. I mean, it's a smallish toy, but it works perfectly for her. You're packing 16 different points of articulations, including a lot of ball joints here in the hips, elbows, shoulders. And that's 4 points of articulation in the arms alone. That includes the swivel here below the elbow, as well as raising and lowering the shoulders. You get a lot of different posability out of it that way. The hips are a little restricted, and it's not just because of these panels. These can be folded back, actually add a little bit of design aesthetic to her that I like, but it doesn't seem like they go out as far as they should be able to. I think it's just a little bit of misdesign there. But it's not too bad. It's nothing that's going to cripple the toy. Any pose you can really prefer to get her in, she can probably get into it pretty handily. The detailing on this thing is also really nice. It's animated, so it's simple, but it works. It's very effective. There's the face. A few paint blemishes on mine, so never mind those. But you've got the lines on the head. You've got the eyes, which are very, very well done light piping. You can see her eyes are bright blue here, and there's no light shining behind it. So if you've got a laser pointer, this thing is going to look demonic. She's got a lot of detailing everywhere. It kind of falls apart in the legs a little bit because of all the vehicle kibble, but they tried to streamline it as much as they could, and it's not too bad of a job. All in all, it's very Arcee, especially with these big pontoon things hanging off of her back, which we finally know are her rear fenders. The mystery is solved. They also act as the sheaths to her swords. Now, these are a little stiff to get in and out. And actually getting them in is the tricky part. A lot of people have complained about stress marks on her thumb from trying to put these swords in. I'm going to tell you right now. It's because this looks square and this is opened. I almost made the same mistake everybody else did. The fact is, this isn't squared off. You can see it's got a little bit of a rim there to help hold it into place. So it's actually the same width all the way around, which means it's a peg. So slide it in from the top, goes right in, no stress marks, no worries. So here we have IDW Arcee, twin swords ready, and she gets a lot of poses out of them. She can look very intimidating with them. She has all the right posability in the arms to do pretty much any kind of pose you want with the swords. And it gets magnified when you try and include these fins. This is where the toy actually looks like it is at the deluxe size, because you're adding a lot of extra bulk here. The added blades, I admit, they don't add a whole lot to the aesthetic. But it does add some more blades on her, which is perfect for the IDW Arcee. So you've got G1, IDW, and animated. All are represented very well here in all the nice details. And this is easily one of my favorite animated figures. I mean, everything right down to the transformation. And I described it last night on the TFW podcast. It's intuitive. It knows what it has to do and how to do it right, and it just does it. It doesn't overcomplicate itself like some of the movie toys. It's fun to transform and very simple despite how many things are going on, and that's exactly what I like in a transformation. Except it does leave one oddity. Remember that Autobot symbol I told you about? The one I thought was a little too bold? It's because in vehicle mode it becomes a tramp stamp. You're a school teacher, Arcee. You should know better than this. That being said, Arcee is a phenomenal anime figure, and it's sad that she's a store exclusive. If you don't have a Toys R Us around you, get a friend to pick this up for you. If you've been waiting on a good G1 Arcee, or if you're an animated fan in general, this has got to be one to pick up. You will not be disappointed. And that brings me to the end of the review, and this is a random review, so I should be drawing the bag at this point. But you know what? I don't feel like it. And you know why? Because, since this is a store-exclusive deluxe, she only has one casemate. And I think I'm going to cheat once and cover him next. And he won't be too far off, so stay tuned.
The best place for toys on the net, BigBadToyStore.com. Pre-orders for all the hottest toys, the biggest brands, imports of your favorites, vintage toys available again, collectible replicas and statues. Pile of loot, buy some now, some later, and get it shipped all at once. It's all there right now at BigBadToyStore.com.
Goes right in, no stress marks, no worries. Unless she falls over when you're trying to demonstrate it. Get this right, Arcee. It's your one time on camera, don't screw it up.